Have you ever wanted to know how is that done on board, or who's really behind the various initiatives that take place within the bars and restaurants at sea? Or how do trends in hospitality really impact the F&B experiences that are fantastic and that guests enjoy while cruising? Then Eat, Drink, Cruise is your podcast. Sustainability, unique and distinct experiences, reshaping beverage consumption, culinary innovation, supply and demand in today's commercial world, and the people that make all of this happen is actually what our Eat, Drink, Cruise podcast aims to cover. In 2024, the outlook for cruising expects to see over 35 million guests on board, which is a 12% increase year on year, according to Cruise Lines International Association. And so this podcast really becomes a sneak peek behind the scenes of a dynamic industry, whether you're a cruise expat or a successful supplier or newcomer supplier or just an F&B fanatic. Bite-sized conversations are what this podcast are all about. My name is Ken Taylor, and welcome to the show. We have a great lineup of different players throughout the business, including operators and consultants and influencers. It's a holistic perspective on the status of cruise F&B today. Well, we're back with the Eat, Drink, Cruise podcast. My name is Ken Taylor, and welcome to the show. Now, if you ever wondered how to find a great job and work independently, actually work anywhere you want, and to some extent experience the same kind of success your colleagues might find in a really thriving business or in a major position, then social media, might be it. You can do this exclusively from your phone, which allows you to really be anywhere you want. I'm joined here today by Rachel Samson. Rachel, it's not just a millennial thing, is it?
I don't think so. I have a lot of creator friends in all sorts of different spaces, all different ages, all different lifestyles, countries. It's pretty cool to kind of see the success of different people across social media.
So anyone can be a social media star then? Can you be a guru and not even know it?
I think it's possible. I think the biggest thing is really just having the will to succeed. It's difficult. It's harder than it sounds. I think this whole influencer culture where people think my niche is food. People think I walk into a restaurant, snap a couple pics, upload them, and that's it. I get a free meal, I get a paycheck. It doesn't really work like that. There's so much behind it, on the business side, and there's so much on it on the editing side and the networking, and it kind of never ends.
Especially if you're intending to make income on it. Like my son, for example, or even my daughter, both of them are my daughter's 28, my son's 21. He develops gaming software, but I don't think his phone goes very far. I don't think my phone goes very far for me, actually. But he's always looking at social media. That's what everybody does. So the demand is there. It just seems like an amazing industry. And you and I have spoken a little bit. I'm really it's inspiring, really, to be able to talk with you. Rachel, you've experienced a great deal of success. You graduated from Brandeis University. You lived in Chicago, kind of grew up there, right?
Yeah, grew up in Chicago.
And a 7-year stint in retail, and then a long career in construction management. So tell me how that bridge occurred between really being just, a successful American, businesswoman working your way along. And now here you are, a social media influencer.
Yeah, total pivot. I think when I fell into this and really started focusing on it as a job, as a career, it kind of felt natural. I kind of said, remember back in the day when I used to promote clubs, or, how I was the first person to start posting food on Facebook, or how into the coding and making my profile cool on MySpace, all these really old school things kind of put together led up to this for me. So it did feel kind of natural as a transition, but having been in construction management for 13 years, I thought I would retire with that company. I thought that was my career for the rest of my life. And I was happy with that. And I was excited for that. I had moved across 3 different states, from Boston to New York to Miami, with this company. And the position changed a lot. The company changed a lot, the whole environment. And at the time, while I was sad I was leaving, because I really thought that that's where I should be, but also felt like it was a good breaking point. I had no idea what was going to go on in the next couple of years in the pandemic. I started my page in 2017. That's the year I left my company. And come 2020, there was lots of layoffs within that company, across the whole world, obviously. So that could have been the end of it for me then. And so, it's almost a saving grace that I had started this and had something to throw myself into. And it wasn't the world crumbling in 2020 for me, because I was already working for myself and, assuming the building blocks for this.
That's really great. You're in Miami. Do you love Miami? You obviously moved there for work. Now here you are. Much of your work, though, is the cruise industry. Although I think it's clear if you look at your Instagram post, and for everyone, the Instagram handle is Stick a Fork in Me, and it's not hard to get absolutely lost in these videos you post. I mean, they are clearly the result of some really cool work. You're in Miami. There's a lot going on in Miami. I mean, just Miami alone could probably keep you busy outside of the cruise industry, wouldn't you think?
I like to call my page food entertainment. It may not be the top of the line, the Michelin star, although you will find those kind of recommendations in there. A lot of it is kind of this food porn, this behind the scenes. I love getting really deep into food. And what's great is that there's food everywhere and everybody eats. So not only do I film here in Miami, but I've really taken on the travel industry and go everywhere in the world. It's brought me to Europe, it's brought me to Iceland. The cruising is a huge passion of mine, which really only started in 2019, right before the pandemic. And exploring the food and like the mass production that they do on the ships, and the quality is really kind of mind blowing. So it's been intriguing and exciting for me.
I mean, it's behind the scenes, and that's really your passion is food, which is great because that's our passion too with this podcast. But I did notice, like, you have a post here, you at the UFC fight. There's a
Mhm.
fight. Were you asked to do that or be part of that?
It was just an invite. I was invited by the local tourism. They just had some extra tickets, and a friend of mine said, "Do you want to come to this?" So it's not like that was an ad or a paid stint or anything like that. That was
Hmm.
just kind of what I did on Saturday night. And I do try to incorporate a lot of my own events, and I want to make it more than food, and I want to, include myself. And it's just kind of my page is what I see, what I experience, and I want you to come along with me on the journey.
Well, you definitely have fun. I mean, the post you have in front of the Las Vegas sign, obviously you get opportunities and you have friends in Vegas, and there's a heck of a lot going on in Vegas. I noticed a picture of you or a video of Gordon Ramsay, so it's nice to have stars too. Do they want your attention? Does someone like Gordon Ramsay, is he interested in your approach, or is that?
In reality, he probably does not care about me. And, he said hello. He was super nice. That was such a nice dinner. Again, it was just like a media invite. It was like a small group of influencers who came and had dinner, and he kind of hosted it for us. And it was a cool opportunity. I mean, Gordon's someone that I look up to. I look up to him, Guy Fieri, and all these people. And living in Miami really is kind of that bridge between, we have South Beach Wine and Food that just passed, and the cruise industry. Everything is really kind of happening in the heartbeat of Miami here.
Hmm. And really, Vegas is another opportunity, but then even Chicago. I mean, you're from Chicago, my favorite city in the country. I mean, a lot of people think, well, from a food and beverage standpoint, New York is probably the leader. I actually really love Chicago. Do you go to Chicago and do much?
Yeah, well, truthfully, my family's there, and so I go there several times a year, but I kind of end up sticking in the suburbs and eating at home, and going to my favorite Portillo's over and over. I mean, I would go there
Mm.
every night of the week if my family let me.
So you're a bakery. That's the thing. I love that. A Portillo's is awesome,
Uh-huh.
and then you love bakery. I mean, clearly, when you look at your Instagram post, why is bakery such a thing for you?
I don't know. I don't know if it started because of the excitement I would get when I would post a video of how to make croissants. I think there's so many pieces of a bakery that people don't really consider. I was kind of taught, oh, you mix flour and water and you shape it into a loaf and you bake it. And then, I started to learn about laminating and the amount of butter they put
Mm.
into these things, and going into these kitchens and factories and galleys where they're producing some of this stuff, and the machines that they have that cut 50 rolls at a time. And, you know, all of that is pretty spectacular.
You ought to look at some of the robotics, like some of the major production of bakery items. Not as boutique by any means, but when you start seeing some of those robotics work, I'll bet you'd be interested in that and putting together how you really do mass production. You see that on the cruise ships. They let you behind the scenes. How do you get behind the scenes on a cruise ship? I mean, do they just let you meet the chef and then you're kind of off and running and photographing, or what's your
Yeah, I
method
mean,
there?
it depends on the ship, the sailing, the team. If I'm working on a social media sailing, it's usually arranged for me, and I will take a galley tour, and I'll usually request. Sometimes I really have to push for it in this post-COVID era. It's been difficult to get into the kitchens, and now it's kind of relaxing a little bit. People are a little less freaked out now. They're like, oh, fingers in the food, of course we expect that. But there was a time when that would like trigger people and set them off. And that you'll find in any kind of viral post, people will run away with the craziest thing. But usually on a cruise, there is a galley tour that's open to anyone, and you can book that kind of as an excursion. And I think that's cool because I see people that are really enthusiastic about taking that. And it's really one of my favorite parts.
And it's finding moments to get back there when they're actually doing something
Mm-hmm.
substantial, right?
Well, they're doing, I mean, those bakeries are going from like 3 a.m. to like, I mean, they're 24 hours, some of them. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Now, when you're on a brand like a cruise ship product or even any of the brands that you work with, I'm guessing you're hoping for a viral moment. So explain to me how a social media person who's either asked to do something with a brand or just happens to post something, what's the method of developing a viral moment? Is it a conscious one? Is it a happy, just happen to be moment? Explain to me how that works.
You know, there's a
'Cause
lot.
isn't sorry to interrupt, but isn't a viral moment what you're looking for?
For me, I love catching that viral moment. I mean, it's one of the things that gives me the most thrill, and I truthfully I see a lot of growth in my accounts when I hit those viral moments. It's about discovery. People find my page through this crazy thing I posted, and that's the same reason that I post it. People find this restaurant through a crazy thing I posted. They may go to the restaurant and that's not what they order, but that brought them there. So on a cruise ship, sure, I want the most viral moment, and I've had videos go viral where I'm like sliding down a slide as opposed to even showing off the food. You know, there's so many things and on a ship that are exciting like that. I do like the most viral things, but take for example on Icon of the Seas that I just sailed with Royal Caribbean, and I went into the supper club, and it's not my most viral video ever, but I think it really adds value because I was one of the first people to get in there and really show this meal and what it is, and make people understand why a cruise ship can charge extra, you know, food's included, but you're going to pay an extra $200 or whatever it is to come to this meal. But here's giving you a little peek at what it is. And it's a whole supper club, and there's someone singing beautiful old school, you know, New York kind of swanky tunes in front of you while you're served 10 courses. And now everyone wants to go to it. It wasn't like this crazy cheese pull or a giant milkshake or whatever it is. And that's all there too. But
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to tape on that ship, and introductions to the brand as far as new concepts, and I think everybody's doing that. So you're in a really good spot when you think about it, because even the other cruise lines, I don't know that everybody's trying to top each other, but they're trying to ensure they relate to what people would expect. What the languages would be shoreside or in the U.S. and in the industry, but make it even more interesting and fun, because that's what a vacation experience is all about. You're in a limited time, you're a captive audience, and they want to grab your attention. So there's a lot going on in food and beverage. That's why we're so excited, with F&B at Sea, and really recognizing the operators and contributors, because it's getting really fun now. I mean, it didn't used to be the case. It really didn't. But in the last 10 years, it's been awesome. Are you consider yourself a cruiser now? I think your first cruise was 2019.
yep,
Is that right?
it was
Are you a
2019.
cruiser now?
Well, I did 3 cruises between August of 2019 and the shutdown in early 2020. And I literally went into 2020 saying, I am going to be a cruise influencer. I think this is for me. I think I like doing this. There were no more cruises in 2020, let me tell you.
Great timing.
Yeah. But I think I've caught up starting in, when things reopened. I think I now just completed my 19th cruise, and I've been able to go on so many different cruise lines, and there's so many more on my radar. I have my favorites. I really think there's a cruise out there for everyone. It's not a cookie cutter. It's not a one size fits all. One of my favorite cruises was Uncruise, and it was in Alaska, and there were 70 people on that ship. And that was actually my first cruise ever. And what a cool thing. And I can love that. And I can also love being on Icon of the Seas, the biggest cruise ship in the world. So there's, something for everyone there.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, with the luxury end too, Ritz-Carlton, now Four Seasons, the traditional luxury or smaller lines, Seabourn and others, where there's a different lifestyle there. The food's probably still amazing, but they may not have as many restaurants and whatnot. But there's still really cool stuff to photograph there. So many new cruise line products out there, new routes, new ports. Do you pitch this? Are you at a stage where they come to you? Is it both? Do you consider hiring someone to be your agent? How
Oh,
does
there's
how does
that
this
that's
evolve?
such a loaded question. I mean, I've considered it many times. I am not represented by anybody right now, but that also puts an awful lot of work on my plate, and it's difficult to keep up with. I work like 15 hours a day sometimes. It's a little crazy. I don't pitch myself very often. I probably should, but I do have a lot of incoming, and I think my account's very visible, and I'm pretty good at networking and kind of establishing myself. So I do get a lot of incoming work, but I do have goals, and I have reached out to some cruise lines, and I'm always kind of surprised when they're not super responsive or not sending me, because I have cruise conversations every single day, even on Facebook groups. I'm sitting there talking and making recommendations, and I can only recommend what I've been on. So
Yeah, going back to viral for a moment. When you see something happening, how do you encourage it? Or do you just, you posted it and you're watching the conversation? What are signs to you that sort of say, okay, I think this was a good post because is it activity, opinion? What's going through your mind? I wanted to get to that because I wanted to ask you that
sure.
question.
It's a little of everything. There are times when I'm really disappointed with the performance of a post, and this is just the Instagram algorithm and TikTok and all that playing against us. But I can be disappointed in a post, but I can also have someone specifically say to me, "I saw your post about Norwegian Viva, and I booked that cruise." And maybe the post wasn't viral for me, but it did what it was supposed to. I have restaurant owners that say, "Hey, thanks for coming. We had so many people come in and ask for that item last week that have never walked in the door before." And again, it maybe for me that wasn't viral, but that's not the point. That's really hitting the right niche.
Well, that's a good attitude. But I also think that if you look at a post and you put a lot of energy in it, and then all of a sudden you're not seeing much
Oh,
happen.
it's heartbreaking. Don't get me wrong. I can spend 5-6 hours editing a post, particularly if it's something like those bakery things, and you really never know. I had something on my page last week, and it had like 600 likes, which for me is not good. And it just sat
Wow.
there. And even my mom said to me, like, "Rachel, why does that brisket croissant not have any likes on it? Nobody liked it." I don't know, because I posted it before and it's kind of gone viral. And then all of a sudden, like 2 days ago, it sprung up to like 5.5 million views. Everyone's fighting on it. They put too much butter. They did this wrong. They did that wrong. It looks dry.
Is fighting a
That
good
that's
sign?
corned beef. I love it. Secretly, I love it. I might feel different if I was like the chef and I might be insulted by the work, but and I felt that way when it's something that I cooked at home, that someone's like, "That's awful. That looks flavorless. You don't know how to do this." But as a creator, I mean, we want that engagement. I would rather someone send something to their friend and say, "That looks gross," or put in their story and say, "I would never eat this," because then, hundreds of thousands more people are kind of linking in this chain and seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what it must feel like. Like, okay, so I'm not a chef. We have chefs on our team. I've been working in the food and beverage industry my whole life. But an artist, like a chef, puts something out and they put their work into it, and it can be a little depressing if it doesn't go well, particularly if you're an artist, right? And people are like, That's fine. And that's kind of what you go through. I mean, it is your little creation. You've captured a moment in time or a product or something super cool. And even when you look at your posts, I mean, you have a lot of energy and a lot of funness, right, that you present to how you post things. And then it's like, ugh. But then you said earlier, 600 likes. Oh, I wish I did better. I'd love to have 600 likes, but I'm not
Right.
an influencer, right?
Right,
I don't
right.
get
I
paid.
know.
What's the number that you look to get when you post something? Like in a certain, let's say, is it 12 hours? By 12 hours, I want what?
It has changed so much over the years. At one point, I like had to hit 1,000 likes in the first hour, or I thought it would be a terrible post.
Hmm.
Oh, it hit 100 likes in the first hour. This one might be okay. It's like it has changed so much, and it's really just this algorithm. It's due to the saturation. Everybody's a creator, and
Right. So that's really
Instagram
what it
itself,
is.
yeah,
It's a, and
Instagram itself can highlight small accounts. They have a thing where they want to like help small creators, but then a lot of the big creators are like, well, what about us?
but almost like that. Yeah. Good. Great point. And then also, if you are a specific focus, like you like, food, obviously that's your main thing. You do post other things. But when you dive into some of the things you really, really love, I feel like the posts are better. Is that true? Or because it's like anything, if you're asked to do a certain number of brand pieces, right? Obviously, when you're asked to do a brand piece, do you consider, well, I'm gonna have to dig somewhere to find a like for me in it, so I can make it fun and make it authentic. What's your thought process? Or do you say no to certain brands when you're posting just because you don't think you're going to be able to pull something out? What do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely I am selective, and it's again, it's a balancing thing within this business. I have to make money, and I have to work with brands, and this quarter has been really quiet, and so it's like, am I going to take something that I would never post something that I just don't believe in,
Hmm.
but will I post something that's not my favorite thing to do or eat? But it's all subjective. It's somebody else's favorite thing to do or eat. So I'm just carrying this information and feeding it to the public. But yeah, I mean, maybe I do say no to quite a bit of work. It's just either not worth my time, they don't have the budget. I mean, I stay really flexible. If someone makes me an offer, it's hard to say no to any money. It's like this is my income and it all adds up. But it's the amount of work that I'm going to do and how I think it's going to perform. I don't want to just say yes to something that's going to perform poorly just to make the money. It's more mentally draining for me to see something do bad, even if I put a lot of heart into it.
When you're out and about and you see something cool, even though you're going to promote something by posting, do you do that, or do you stop and go, you know what? Do you then create it or at least record it and then get back to them and consider it, or how do you just say, you know what? I really love this. I'm gonna post this anyways.
I mean, I would say 90% of my posts, by the way, are not sponsored. They are
Okay.
just like from the heart. This is what I found. This is what I saw. I've identified something cool and I want to go shoot it. Of course, it is much better if there's payment behind it. And I do think it's deserving. It's really a fight with a lot of us creators to kind of get that right because, especially with the food niche, there's always someone that's willing to do it for a free meal. And you see people like we kind of used to get attacked back in the day, like, oh, this big creator tried to charge us. We're just a mom and pop restaurant. And I get that too. They're operating on a thin margin and they don't necessarily, have time for it. But there's also a restaurant, for example, that says hot dogs in Fort Lauderdale and they really want me to come. Well, I'd be happy to if I was just passing them on a street. I would film them for free. But I got rid of my car. I have to take a train. It's going to take me 2 hours to get there. It's going to take me an hour and a half to shoot it. I already had lunch, so I don't even want to eat this hot dog. And, then I have to go home and spend 4 hours editing it. Then I post it. Then I have to engage with all the comments. It's like, it's really a full day's process to make a post. So people do have to understand that as well, that for me, it's a business and I can't necessarily just come and do everything out of the goodness of my heart to support.
Absolutely. Luckily, you're asked to do a lot of cruise work, which keeps you busy. Is there a favorite post that you've done in the cruise industry by chance, or any industry that you really think, wow, that's one of my favorites?
Well, one of the posts that I did for Royal when Wonder the Seas came out, it was not necessarily food focused. It was kind of one of those like, welcome to the biggest ship in the world. And I was just going through and kind of highlighting every corner of the ship. And that was kind of in the day when TikTok was huge too. I have a really big following over there, but that's not necessarily like my main platform. But I just remember that one going so bonkers viral, and people are so intrigued by cruise ships and how big they are, and really we forget living here in Miami because it's just so normal to be going on cruises. But like growing up in the Midwest, I never set foot on a
Right.
cruise. I never even thought of it. So there's just people that are just so blown away by things like that. So that was one of my all-time favorite like cruise posts. And then there's just been little moments where I'm like in a port and I'm seeing someone make popcorn in St. Thomas, and I've been able to recommend this little popcorn place a dozen times when people have said, where should I go in St. Thomas? I'm like, oh, you have to stop at the popcorn place.
Right. And, everybody's, on social media nowadays in one form or another. For the cruise industry, the appetite for sales typically rests at a little bit of an older customer. And I say older, I mean, 30 something or older, but Gen Zers are on social media more than ever, as that's the way they grew up. And so for you to be posting cruise, that's got to help the cruise industry.
I think so. I mean, I think it's really opened up the eyes to cruising for this kind of millennial and Gen Z customer. Yeah. So it's opened up the Gen Z customer to wanting to cruise. I think that's something that's new because I remember kind of going on some of my first cruises and being like, oh, it's really an older demographic here. And then now I'll go on a cruise and we'll be on the top deck at 2 o'clock in the morning, jumping up and down and raging and going to the nightclub. And to me, that's the best part about a cruise ship. You can do what you want to do when you want to do it. It's all there. It's available.
And what you post is authentic, and the food that you're posting is authentic, and you can tell just by looking at it. And I think that's an important piece for the Gen Zer, where they're looking for not just meaningful, product, but they're looking for an authentic experience, right? And your posts certainly share that. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. Stick a Fork in Me. Check it out. Amazing, amazing posts. A true influencer in the cruise industry. I really appreciate you joining our little show.
Awesome.
Bye bye.